Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. Hey guys, I'm Randy Younger, and this is another episode of Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. And with me tonight, I have a lovely panel of guest critics as always. We have new to the show, Ms. Castellan Villar, and also no stranger to the show, Mr. Matt Roran.
I was really hoping you'd mispronounce my name. It's good to be here, Randy.
Good to be here.
Yes, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. So it's good to have you guys. We've got a lot to talk about. But first off, this week we sadly lost a great member of the entertainment community, comedian and actor, Mr. Richard Lewis. He was 76 years old. He had Parkinson's disease and died of a heart attack. And, you know, he's been a staple of the comedy world for decades. And most recently, he's been on Curb Your Enthusiasm as Larry David's good friend, his good friend in real life.
Yeah.
Since summer camp,
they were born on the same day in the same hospital.
Yeah, that's
which
crazy.
is insane.
That's a love story right there. But it's a true bromance, and he was just so good, so original, very self-deprecating, sarcastic.
Yeah, I remember getting into him very early on when I was younger, seeing his stand up in the 80s and just being, it was, you know, no one else was doing like depression comedy yet. It was it was so depressed. So like, you know, he was the man in black, you know.
That's
that natural dark humor
he was really one of a kind, and his style has never been matched.
Him and Belzer. And,
and they were both
were both very good friends. And they were in the movie The Wrong Guys together, which is one of my all-time favorite comedies.
It's one of those movies that are under the radar, I'd say.
Definitely way under.
1988 comedy. Gotta love it.
I love it.
Castellan, were you a fan of Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, I bet. I can't say I was the most familiar with his work, but of course, he left a big stamp in the comedy world. He influenced a lot of other people as well, especially because of, like you said, Matt, really bringing that sort of like theme and topic to light in comedy. It wasn't light and fluffy anymore, and it was sort of the comedy that we didn't know we needed, and we still need it to this day. It's because it's real. So
it's honest. It's just it needs to be spoken, and he really was a pioneer in that type of crap.
I mean, it is like a common thread through stand up now, and it's like, it's crazy to think like back then it was a very rare thing.
It was really sad, but you know, he left behind a great legacy. You know, Robin Hood Men in Tights. But yeah, his work on Curb was really something special.
I'm glad we got him back this season.
I know,
because he was absent from last season because he was sick. So.
And you know, he really did not look too good towards the end, but he went out guns blazing, I'd say. And his repartee with Larry was just so great.
It's crazy too, because the last episode that airs is him telling Larry, like, I'm leaving you everything, like, you know, when I die. So it's like kind of weird that he died like a couple days after that.
Right.
It's like,
they knew. They basically knew that he was on his way out. So a great send-off. And you know, Curb Your Enthusiasm is a great show. It's on its 12th and final season. If those of you who have not seen it, fantastic, kind of an extension of the Seinfeld universe in a weird way. And you know, Richard was an integral part of that universe, so he will be missed. He's a good man. All right, moving on. So we have two reviews, and these are two films that are fantastic in my opinion. They are the epitome of the dramedy. And the first one is nominated for 5 Academy Awards this year. It's called American Fiction. It's a great story. It's great performances, screenplays, and the direction is on point. Our second film that we're going to be reviewing after that is called Wonder Boys. And this is a lesser known film from 2000. But before we get into that wonderful movie, American Fiction. So basically, Thelonious Monk Ellison is a writer. He's kind of hit kind of a crossroads in his professional life, and his publisher wants him to write something, or the people who are his audience, his readers, want him to write something that is quote unquote more Black. And he definitely does this, and does it in sort of a joking way, but that joke becomes a sensation, and he is now basically a celebrity. Well, his alter ego is a celebrity, and now he's trying to deal with that fame, and at the same time he's having some serious family issues. You know, he got a sister and a brother played by Sterling K. Brown, also nominated for an Oscar. Jeffrey Wright's nominated as well. And it's basically about Monk's professional life and personal life basically coming to a halt, and he's trying to like basically reconcile everything and make sure he does the right thing. So I love this movie. It's on my top 10 for sure. It's got some very heavy, deep issues, but at the same time, it's kind of told in sort of a light way. So it's a great balance between the dark and the light. And I think it's a wonderful film. Casterlyn, I know you're a fan. What did you think of American Fiction?
Well, I have so much to say about American Fiction because it was such a fantastic film. Also, because we're going into two films that revolve around characters who are writers specifically, right? These films don't particularly have any similar like plot points. Like, you know, it's completely different stories, but in that idea that it's stories about writers, isn't it great that the writing is great in both of the films? Like, wouldn't it have been terrible if it was like a story about writers and the writing was terrible? Because the writing was so wonderful.
Right.
It was really, really authentic to expressing what it means to dialogue between family members and between professional relationships, romantic relationships, and even secondary relationships. So this film was really necessary in this day and age for highlighting what it means to be an artist in that regard, an artist working in a business and navigating those waters.
Right.
It's something that I find has been kind of highlighted in some careers, but maybe not others, right? And yes, this is also about a Black experience as well. And it's funny that you mentioned just now, like, yes, there is like so many light themes to how they told this story. And that's something that made it so refreshing. It made it something that was something you want to have a conversation about. And yet, because we'll talk about Wonder Boys soon, there were so many dark themes in Wonder Boys, and we'll touch on that. But it's ironic that American Fiction used these lighter tones, right? Almost as though the message is we have to dilute things to make it digestible, or we have to make it just in one specific realm of storytelling for people to love it or accept it, right? When it's coming from a Black perspective. But would the film have been as effective if they had made it in as dark of a tone as Wonder Boys is, right? There's so much like deeper, darker humor, even in the cinematography choices, the lighting and the sound and such like that in Wonder Boys definitely goes in a much darker direction than it does in an American Fiction. So that's just things that I noticed, but all in all, American Fiction was so beautifully done.
I think if they told this story in a darker way, in a more intense and like really kind of jam it down your throat type of way, it would have definitely turned off audiences. I think this tone really helped with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely I work in a movie theater that's mostly white old people, and they all love the movie. So
Yeah, and but that's
they
the
often
thing,
don't appreciate it.
right? Yeah, they appreciate it, and that's actually the ironic part about it, right?
I know it's
maybe we
kind of
couldn't tell
hysterical.
this story that way, right? Maybe people wouldn't have received it that way, and that's something to think about too, because it is still really dark to think about what it means to be a writer in that position. As a Black man trying to speak with a voice that he only knows as his own, right? And that being the beauty and the part of his work that really drives him forward. And yet, to tell a Black story, he has to go out of himself and tell a story that is only encompassing one side of Blackness, Black culture. And it is encompassing the side that maybe is darker or of just like a lifestyle that he is not from at all. And that alone is a dark perspective on just like him looking at himself as if he is like not Black enough or
Mhm.
didn't live a Black enough life.
Right.
And it kind of just shows how one is not more than the other. Both of those things happening at the same time in American fiction, the false writing that he was telling, the false stories of Blackness and his own real life are both Black experiences.
Yeah.
Both of them are, and one is not more Black than the other. They can both exist in the same space.
There's so many themes popping up here.
Yeah.
We definitely have race, we definitely have, society, we have fame, and of course, family. So
Yeah.
all of these themes are so strong and they're displayed so well here. They all intermingle with one another, and the performances really bring those themes out. And I think it's just a beautiful film.
Yeah, I mean the performances in this film.
Yeah.
I mean, anything Jeffrey Wright does, I mean, I think he's one of the finest actors in recent years.
Yeah.
Sterling K. Brown,
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
loved I've been following his career since Army Wives. I'm not, it's a weird thing for, it was like, but me and my ex-wife, we used to watch it all the time, and I've like watched him grow as an actor over these years, and he's had such great charisma, and just like watching him get to like this role he just nails it, and it's just very I felt like it's like one of those things like watching him act for so long. I was like, oh, I'm like proud of him. I'm like, oh, like that's my boy. But I mean, everything about this movie, like it made me laugh out loud in a theater, which very rarely happens these days, where I have an actual out loud chuckles and stuff. But I do have slight issue with this film is that it covers so much subject matter that it almost feels at times like the movie forgets what it's trying to do. Because it's like you have like there's like 20 minutes where it's like, oh right, this movie's about a book. Like, or like it's where it's like they're focusing on his his love life, his brother, his mother. And it's like it kind of like it feels like it's a couple different films that are kind of like loosely like almost like an anthology film that like wraps up
like it doesn't have a single identity on its
own. Like I feel like especially if like you go off even the trailers, the first trailer is very much about the book, the second trailer is very much about family.
Okay,
so it's like weird because when the second trailer came out I was like, oh, this feels like a completely different movie, and then watching it I was like, now I understand why, because it's like it is like multiple kind of like movies
right,
in one,
kind of stitched together, like
kind of stitched together.
Yeah,
and that was my only flaw with it, is that it didn't feel as like cohesive. Like I felt like it felt like more like a TV show. It was like episodic.
It could have easily been a series. Right. That's a good point.
But I mean, overall, I thought it was fantastic. It was, very well made. I just, I think maybe it was the editing that I don't know.
I'll tell you though, I saw the movie twice, and it got a lot better the second viewing. So maybe this movie warrants multiple viewings. I don't know about you, Castellan, if you share that sentiment.
Yeah, you both just made really, really great like points on your observations, right? Because I think that both of you are, onto something here. Yes, it goes into different worlds, but it's sort of what I said just now, where it's like we're telling two different stories about like Blackness, and yet they exist at the same time. And I think that although I know, Matt, you're receiving it as though it's not cohesive and there's multiple movies happening at the same time, or like multiple stories. I think that's almost like the choice. It almost feels like it was like a choice to tell multiple sides of a Black experience at the same time, because it was a very complex family experience and family dynamic in there as well. A dynamic that definitely strays away from the kind of storytelling that he was mimicking, right? And that was very, very true to just who he was as a person. And when we focused on things like Sterling K. Brown's experience as a character, or the relationship that they had with their sister's death when Tracy Elise Ross passed, and such like that, the relationship with the mother, the relationship with the family friend.
A lot going on here. It's a lot.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on, and I found it to actually be very intentional for there to be many stories happening at once. Because, I mean, life is not linear that way.
Right. Yeah, that is true.
At the point of like them saying like the Black voice is supposed to sound like this, right? This is what gets publishers to publish a book. It's like, oh no, but actually there's so many more layers to it, right? When we hear those layers in other families or from other artists, sometimes we don't question it, but maybe we question it more when it comes from other artists' voices.
Yeah.
It's pointing that out.
Right. I get you. That's a really good point, Castro, and really, really good. I just wanted to close out this review by mentioning that I am not a Jeffrey Wright aficionado, but I think after this movie I will be.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I this afternoon actually I watched Basquiat.
Oh my God.
Which I have never seen. And basically it's from 1996. I think he was about 30 years old.
Yeah.
And it's about the real life artist from the 80s who died of a heroin overdose. But Wright is perfect in this role.
That was the first thing I ever saw him in.
It was like so weird.
And he's so good.
Yeah, it was so weird just seeing him in this and then seeing him in Basquiat.
Yeah.
Like such different performances. He like really transforms himself.
But he's great. Even and modern. He was Commissioner Gordon in the last Batman movie.
I just know him as
the narrator on Marvel's What If. Like his voice is just so.
But I'd say for the last 15 to 20 years, he's usually been supporting.
Yeah, and this is like it was like I've been. Because it feels like since Basquiat, he hasn't had like a real leading role.
This is
it. It was great to see him have one because it's like he deserves to be a leading man. Like
he has that power to drive.
Yeah, and it's a very understated, very subtle, nuanced performance. He's brilliant.
He's so.
He has a strong shot, I think, at the Oscar this year.
Yeah,
it might go to Cillian Murphy. It might. I don't know. It's up in the air, really. But we shall see for American Fiction. So we've got 5 nominations, the Oscar next Sunday night, guys. So tune in for that. Oh, also, before we go, before we move on, I wanted to mention Erica Alexander, who plays the love interest here to Monk. She was on Living Single.
Yeah,
I did not know that. I had to look her up. I was like, she looks familiar, but yeah.
Also, I would love to just. In the writing, the ode to the Thelonious Monk, who was a composer and this like amazing Black man that just like really created an imprint on American jazz music as a pianist. And I mean, there was just such a nod to someone like him and his story. And I know we can't talk about that much, but that was another part of this film that was really beautiful and intentional, just highlighting the correlation between these two Black artists from just like different realms.
Nice. Yeah, I love this movie. I'm going to watch it again a couple more times, and I'm sure there's stuff that I didn't really catch or whatever, but every time I see it, second time was great. So,
nice.
American Fiction.
Definitely need to give it another go round.
Yes, of course. All right, guys. So now we're going to switch gears. We're going to go back in time a little bit to 2000. The
24 years ago.
That's insane. But this movie is another dramedy. It's called Wonder Boys, and it stars Michael Douglas as Grady Tripp. He's a professor of creative writing. He's also kind of blocked in terms of writing his second novel. His first novel, Arsonist's Daughter, did very, very well, and that was about 7 years ago. So everyone's been waiting, especially his editor, his publisher or editor, played by Robert Downey Jr., to get this book done. And then along the way, Michael Douglas's one of his students basically steals a piece of memorabilia. And I don't want to get into all the details, but he screws up. He screws the pooch, actually.
Yeah,
he shoots.
He doesn't more than screw.
He shoots the pooch. And basically, it's Michael Douglas and Tobey Maguire kind of like going on this road trip, and the movie kind of like wanders a little bit. Like, where's the story going? But it's got such a great cast. You've got Douglas, you've got Maguire, Downey Jr.,
Frances McDormand,
he's great. The late great Rip Torn. Katie Holmes is in this. And I love this movie so much. I used to play this movie in high school on VHS, and basically it would help me go to sleep because it was such a quiet film. It was like a nice warm glass of milk, and it's just a really funny, really honest portrayal of campus life, college life, and writers especially, and just regular people and what they go through. And this film is brilliant. Definitely under the radar. I really wish people saw it. They released it in 2000. It did awful at the box office. Then they re-released it, I believe, like a couple months later or a year later, and it still didn't do well. But we're talking about it tonight, and I'm proud of that fact because this movie deserves all the acclaim it can get.
I was 22 when this movie came out.
Nice.
I was 5.
I worked at Tower Records. I was at Tower Records.
Nice.
I remember I picked up the soundtrack immediately. It had some new Bob Dylan songs on it.
And that Bob Dylan won the Oscar for that.
And he won the Oscar for it. I did not see the movie until they re-released it, which was 2001,
something like that. Yeah,
it was like
a year later.
But I was one of the few people that saw it the second time around. And then I immediately bought it when it was released on DVD.
Nice.
Which I think I sold when I initially sold all my DVDs, and then later regretted selling all my DVDs.
Wait, is it at the Pickle Island?
No.
Oh, okay.
If it was, I would have.
Yeah, you would.
I would have been like, oh no, but I did. I sold DVDs at conventions and stuff for a long time. So wow. So I sadly that one got away from me. And I had to rent it to watch it again. But I will re-own it at some point. I regret a lot of the things I let go.
I know the feeling, and I believe it's on Blu-ray at this point. So.
That's good.
And it's available for rent on Amazon Prime.
Oh, yeah, I believe.
I don't think it's very pricey. If anyone wanted to go out and watch it.
It's fantastic. I think it's like $3-4.
Yeah, $4.
Yeah.
Totally worth it.
Worth the rental.
Yeah. Casterlyn, I know this is your first time seeing the film. What were your thoughts?
Yes, it was my first time watching the film, and of course I've never been on this series, this podcast, this show that you have here, and I kind of found myself thinking at first like, oh my gosh, this is so different from American Fiction, just like in just the whole journey of storytelling. And you just mentioned, Randy, that it's like it's that kind of film where there actually is so much action without it being loud. Right. And I've always been one of those people that really appreciates silence, because you can say so much in quiet moments. I think that's just like the actor in me that really, really appreciates the unspoken things or the moments in between. And I found that we didn't need there to be gunshots and explosions and and chaos happening for the story to be strong. And I thought it was a really, really beautiful journey. It was hilarious. I was cackling. I was like, how did I not see this? Also, so many things that are just like ahead of its time. I was like, wow, this came out in 2000. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, we totally like say things differently than we did and in 2000, and we do these things differently. And that was really cool. But overall, um, what I found parallel to American Fiction is actually how dynamic in many stories happening at once.
Mhm.
There was a really, really big amount of just action. You
Right.
know, you had relationships happening and secrets and things that you kind of thought were, being it was kind of like something in passing, but then it came back,
Yeah.
and that was something that I found to be very similar to American Fiction. I think that maybe we are looking at it differently because of the intention of the message, right? In the end, what I found to be the kind of like thicket on both of them, like that button, is like the dynamic nature of life is
Mhm.
what grounds any
Oh,
person and grounds an artist in their work,
yeah.
right? It's like Thelonious Monk experiencing life all around him, searching for love, experiencing loss, and the complexities of the relationships and the relationships with himself. But also, then we have our professor here in Wonder Boy experiencing all of these people that are just so incredibly different from him, and yet he's finding sort of a middle ground, a touching point where they're all colliding
Mhm. Yeah.
constantly.
All of
And
this stuff, all of this stuff happening to this one man in each story, each film, and it's
Yeah.
like he maintains his composure pretty much throughout the
Yeah.
whole thing.
yes,
He's kind
yes,
of like there. He's just in it, in the middle of all of it, and everything is
Yeah.
crashing down around
Yeah.
him, and it's
And
brilliant.
it's just
exactly.
playing, it's his life and it's happening.
Yeah,
And he's just continuing to just live life through it.
yeah.
He's just like coasting life.
Yeah,
I really think Michael Douglas should have gotten a nomination
Yeah,
here, so an Oscar nomination,
absolutely.
because he was brilliant. This is, I think,
yeah,
without a doubt, it might be tied with The Game as my favorite Michael Douglas movie.
Yeah, I mean the game is probably my favorite, but this
That's
is a
so good.
close second.
And I just want to mention the cast here. So you have a cast that is stacked, and they're all basically, they have would later on go on to do superhero movies. Pretty much everybody in the cast.
Yeah.
Michael Douglas with Ant-Man.
Yeah, it's Ant-Man, Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Iron Man.
Tobey Maguire, Spidey, Francis McDormand, Darkman,
Yeah,
Katie Holmes, Batman,
that's true.
Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man,
Yeah.
and lastly, Rip Torn. He was in the Men in Black movie, so that's sort of it's a comic book movie.
Yeah.
So, but I thought that was a interesting little tidbit, a little bit of trivia there. But I can't praise this movie enough, man. I really, we need to bring it into the collective psyche
Yeah.
of
Well,
America.
we finally, we're finally doing this movie. Like,
Yes, yes.
it's a movie that me and Randy have discussed. Like, I feel like that's how I have like very little to say about it right now because I
We've
feel like
already said
we
it.
talk about this movie like every week.
I know, pretty
And
much.
it was like let's just do it.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
I mean,
great.
it gets brought up so often on this show.
I don't know if we're gonna do. We should probably do a 25th anniversary show next year for
Yeah.
it, but that's an idea. We'll see. We'll see.
that would be really cool. That would be really
Yeah,
cool.
it's
You
just
know what? Yeah, I love that you chose two films today that really highlighted life, because
Yeah.
life is not a flat playing field. It's never one thing.
Yeah.
There's always something happening in the background or your external space that influences you, affects you, even it can be a domino effect.
Yeah.
And it affects the work you put out into the world. And as artists, our work touches people. So yeah, that was really impactful from both films.
Both films definitely highlight that bringing art and the sacrifices one would make to bring that art to the masses, and not necessarily. I mean, both characters, they don't want to sell out. But
Oh,
they're kind of forced to. At least Monk is.
Yeah.
Because no one's buying his stuff, and so
Which is a struggle. Most films about authors is that struggle where, it's like where art becomes
Business.
business, and
Right.
it's and it's like first and foremost, obviously the artist wants art,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
the mass. I mean, it's the same thing with film. What's
Yeah.
art and what's whatever.
You're right.
Yeah.
What's just business,
Oh,
Absolutely.
I would love to. Oh,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
so sorry, Randy.
No. I just want to mention Wonder Boys was shot on location in Pittsburgh, and
Oh,
I think the setting really contributed to the storytelling.
Yeah.
It really became a
Mhm.
character in its own right.
Yeah.
So
That's the one thing that's great about movies that still shoot on location, is that, it really makes the location a character.
yeah.
That when I went to see the Holdovers with Alexander Payne,
Yes.
and he was discussing how
Oh, you're friends with him? No, I'm kidding.
no, but
Yeah.
during the Q&A, he
Oh, that's
was
cool.
talking about how he doesn't shoot in studios. He always shoots on location
So I love
because
that.
it's like,
Love it.
it's just like it adds so much more. And he's
Yeah.
so right, because it's like you look at any of these movies shot on location, and it's like there's this warmth, there's this like this just
Yeah.
like its own life
Yeah.
breathed into it that you could tell a studio movie. It's like,
You can't shoot a story like that in a soundstage
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
won't have the same impact. It won't
Yeah.
resonate, and it won't have the same impact that a real story should have.
Yeah.
It should be all movies should be shot. Basquiat was shot in
Yeah.
New York City.
New York City, yeah.
And I love movies that are shot in the city because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just so authentic.
Yeah.
And it really it adds to the story brilliantly. I love
And you
it.
can always tell when it's really New York City.
Right.
When they're like, it's like
Yeah.
it's Canada. Like
Yeah.
you are in Toronto. Don't kid me here. No, it's like
That's sort of that's
Yeah.
that's right. All right, so guys, we're about out of time. But Catherine, are there any plugs you have? Any projects you're working on, or
Well, actually, I am just working on commercial things right now, things that I can't always talk about and such like that. But if anyone wants to find me on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube or anything like that, it's my name, Catherine Villar, which will probably be in the description. But even before we wrap up, I also wanted to make one more comment about the films.
Oh, sure.
And it's about the endings and about
Mhm.
how different they are, because one was left very open-ended and the other one wrapped up really beautifully,
Yeah.
right? So American Fiction was a little bit of a like, you can kind of infer in your own right what happens and where it goes, but I found that the cleanness and the conclusion of Wonder Boys was also equally as gratifying. So, here we are doing gratifying work, right? And yeah, so find me on Instagram, Casterling Villar. Yes, Twitter as Casterling, YouTube also Casterling Villar. I'm the only Casterling. So if you look me up, you will probably find me.
That's great. Having a unique name like that is perfect, especially for an artist. So good for you. That's awesome. Mr. Roran, any plugs for you, sir?
As always, Saturday nights at the Cinema Arts Center in Huntington, Long Island, New York. We have Cult Cafe. This month I am doing a Women's History Month program. We did League of Their Own last night. I got Clueless coming up next week. I got Lost in Translation the week after.
Yes.
Just One of the Guys the week after that.
Is that Amanda Bynes?
No.
Oh.
It's from 1985.
Okay. Paul. What the guy from Breakfast Club. What's his name? He was Halloween. Who's the nerd from the Breakfast Club?
Oh.
Wait, talking about Anthony Michael Hall?
Yes.
No, he's not.
No, he's not.
He's not in it.
Just,
Billy Zabka's in it though.
Oh.
But yeah, it's 1985. Basically, I mean, like, it's She's the Man style story.
That's what it was. Yeah,
that's Amanda Bynes, but this one is
Gotcha.
yeah. So and Sherilyn Fenn from Twin Peaks is also in it. A young Sherilyn Fenn. But it's a classic. I enjoy thoroughly, and we're doing that, and then Yeah, and then Pickle Island, if you want pickles or CDs or DVDs or comics, 12 Lytham Avenue in Bayville, New York. We're over there. So
awesome. Busy man you are. Very good, very good. And as for me, you can check out the basically every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You can tune in for brand new episodes of Under the Radar on SiriusXM radio through Slam Radio. Also, you can check out the video version of the podcast on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and that's every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And as always, feel free to subscribe to the Under the Radar YouTube channel and share the love. So, Castellan and Matt, I want to thank you so much for your time tonight. This was incredible.
always a pleasure.
I think we got a lot of ground covered tonight, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the near future. So, guys, I'm Randy Younger. This has been Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Under the Radar is brought to you by Magnitude Jewelry. Add a 2 to match your attitude. Patent pending, interchange genuine gemstone and crystal EMF protection jewelry. For more information, please visit magnitudejewelry.com/gemgirl or call 718-268-6634.
Thanks so much for taking the time today.
Oh, my pleasure.
So, we'll keep it brief. Just want to have a little chat. So, what are you currently working on?
Right now, I am. I go up to Toronto soon. I don't know when yet, to do a couple of episodes of a new show called The Boys.
Okay.
With I guess Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg producing.
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
And then I've got The Darkest Minds coming out
Nice.
August 3rd. Yeah. And then My Dinner with Hervé should be hitting HBO by September, I think.
Yeah, I just saw some images from that. It looks great.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I've seen it. It's terrific. It's really amazing. Beautiful film, and Peter's terrific.
Yeah, can't wait for that one. So yeah, you've done a lot of TV, a lot of film. Do you prefer one over the other?
Not really. No. I find that it's funny enough, the worlds are colliding. So the demand for better content and better performances in TV has upped the ante, and I think the strive to work faster and more concise in film is also seems to be true. So it seems to be this kind of middle ground now where what you're doing, or what I'm doing as an actor, is just doing the performance that I'd normally do, but also it's not taking 12 days to do one scene in a movie. It's much faster now, so it's fascinating. So no, long answer to a short question. No, there is no preference.
All right,
yeah.
Fair enough.
But if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have said TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of TV, what was it like working on the Larry Sanders Show? What was that experience like for you?
I always say it was kind of like Christmas every Monday morning, because we go in and we get a new script and we do a table read. Mm-hmm. And just the brilliance that was Gary and Peter Tolan and Paul Sims and Steve Levitan and John Regi and all these amazing and Judd Apatow and all these showrunners who became showrunners, from that show. It's all on the page, and we were encouraged to bring it to life to and all the ugliness of it, and that's what made it funny, I think. So it was a great experience, and I knew when it was happening that it was something special and unique, and I was always very grateful for it.
How did you get involved with the show?
It's funny. I got probably like 4 pages of the script, of sides to audition for. And I went in, and the original casting director was Francine Maisler, and I read for her, and she's like, "Oh, that's great." And then I heard nothing for 6 months.
Wow.
It was a bummer, because I thought it's very rare that I pick up something and go, God, I really would love to do this, and I get it, I understand it. And I
6 months.
That was one of those. That was one of those things. Yeah. 6 months. Yeah, 6 months. Nothing. And then, oddly enough, it came back around. They said, "Oh yeah, you're going back in for a callback to meet with Gary Shandling, the creator, and another producer." And I was kind of surprised. So, but like any other actor, I went in and I read for them, and it went great. And then I went and read for some network people, and that went well enough. And there was there was only one writer named Phil originally, and Jeremy Piven was also being considered for the role.
Oh, really?
And and story goes, Gary couldn't decide between the two of us.
So he kept the both of you.
Yeah, well, his girlfriend at the time, Linda Doucette, was the one who's like, just hire them both. They're both great.
Yeah.
And he did, thank God.
And you guys worked beautifully off of each other.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like? Like, did you do a lot of rehearsals together? Did you read together? Like, did you hang out when the cameras weren't rolling?
Not too much. It's funny because I think actors just have their own lives. I mean, we did a little bit, but everybody had their own lives, and I definitely had a very different life than what any other young actor was having at that time. I was married. I had 2 kids, and they're young and single and running around, and I'm young and married and not running around. So that was my experience, but we were really encouraged to improv and explore, and so Jeremy comes from that school too, so he really likes to create a world around the world that's already on the page, and so there was a lot of stuff where we would just kind of riff, or he would start the scene before starting the scene, with something that would get him into the scene, Right. So it was, you never knew what you were going to quite get, so it was kind of fun. It kept me on my toes, for sure.
And now, in the writer's room on Larry Sanders Show, there were a lot of stand-up comedians who passed through that room. Sarah Silverman, for one. Do you have a stand-up comedy background at all, or?
Not at all. No.
Interesting.
I know, it is interesting. It's funny. I mean, there was a moment where I realized I was surrounded by all these comics, and I said to Gary, I said, I should probably try this. He says, you need 5 years. I'm like, really? He said, yeah, you're gonna you won't be good for 5 years. But he said that to anybody. He said, like, that's just what comics, they need 5 years of seasoning and before they're any good. And I was like, I got to feed my family, so I don't know if I could do it. But yeah, we had amazing comics, Janine and Marilyn Rice Cub and Scott Thompson, who came in, also comes from Kids in the Hall, and they had a comedy background too.
Was it intimidating being around all that talent?
I wouldn't say intimidating. No. Maybe I was just too naive to know any better. It just felt like artists who wanted to make something better every step of the way, and Gary was very instrumental in that. He really encouraged us as actors to do the best we could do, and there was no dumb idea. And I learned a lot. You know, I definitely suggested some stupid ideas, and they were like, that's not for the show. I'm like, okay. And then I would just understand and correct and come in and have a sensibility for just really finding the truth. I think that's what Gary was always kind of after, was just finding the truth of what these people, you know, living in these imaginary situations, but living very really, very, very truthfully. So
yeah, it felt real. Like, it really did feel like you were watching human beings, like, interacting with each other. It was really, really special show.
Yeah, that was all Gary. You know, he really he wanted that, and he hired Peter Smokler, our DP, who shot Spinal Tap, and
nice.
And the way Peter tells it is the way how he got Spinal Tap was that Rob Reiner saw a documentary he'd shot and was like, I need you to shoot this movie. He's like, okay, this isn't a documentary. He goes, no, I want it to look like one. So it's like Peter really sculpted that for not only for Spinal Tap, but also for our show. You know, when we're walking down hallways talking to each other, Peter's on rollerblades and being pulled backwards.
That's funny.
And holding the camera. Yeah. And we'd shot on 16 millimeter film, and so it had a grainy effect and everything.
Right.
So.
And yeah, the Larry Sanders Show basically is a pioneer for modern American television because it's got that strong mockumentary feel. What is it like feeling like you're a part of a TV icon?
That's funny. It's a really interesting question. It's interesting meeting people who really got the show and really have a respect for what that was at that time, you know, as a moment in history, and how it really informed, you know, The Office and Curb Your Enthusiasm and Parks and Rec and so many
Scrub?
different shows. And,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of television, you know. And so I had an experience. So I don't really think about it of me being on an iconic show. I was happy and so thrilled for the experience and so proud of being a part of something that really has some history and some weight to it.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I mean, I did a day in War Dogs, and I got to work with Jonah Hill and Miles Teller. And Jonah comes up to me. He says, "I'm a really big fan of yours." And I was really surprised, you know. And I thought, "Oh, this kid gets. He knows comedy, and he gets Sanders." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of people don't, and a lot of people don't even know. A lot of people now don't know, but during the time it was also at the time it was new and groundbreaking for HBO, but it really the sensibilities were very East Coast, West Coast. It really, you know, it didn't have that appeal like audiences of today would watch and have the access to, you know. And so I wish that we had the eyeballs that we could have now. And I also wish we'd done a movie. I wish we'd done something that, you know, like 5 years later had done some, you know, just check in with everybody and find out where they were at. It would have been a blast.
Well, I mean, even though Gary is sadly no longer with us, I mean, I think you guys can pull something off, some kind of another reunion, maybe.
I wish. I don't know if we could. You know, It's funny. Not without him, I don't think we could do it.
Are you guys all like spread out over the world now, or do you keep in touch with any of them?
You know, the one I'm closest to is Penny Johnson. And,
is that Beverly?
Yeah, she played Beverly. Yeah. And I see Mary Lynn. Mary Lynn and I actually worked a lot together. She was my fiance on Veronica's Closet, and
oh, cool.
And then so And then I see Scott. I haven't seen Scott Thompson in a while, but we were definitely friends for a while. So the answer is yes. We're all spread out, and I don't keep in touch as much as I wish I would. You know, although I did make friends with a friend of mine who was a guest star on the show, and I've had a long-standing friendship with him. But no, the last time we saw each other was at Gary's memorial, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What about Jeffrey and Rip?
Jeffrey, I haven't talked to Jeffrey in a long time, and I only saw Rip again at Gary's memorial. And I think or did I see him at the documentary? I'm trying to remember. I definitely saw him at the memorial, and God bless him. But I think he's on the East Coast. So.
Okay. I mean, I would just love to see you guys work together again. That would be so great.
Oh, it'd be a blast. It would be a blast. I'd love to do it.
Now, do you have a favorite episode?
Do I have a favorite episode? Yeah, I really loved putting the gay back into litigation.
Okay.
Just because of the Phil's obtuse crassness and just how it's he's basically harassing Brian, Scott Thompson's character, and it's just
where he walks in with the tight pink pair of shorts.
Because of pair of shorts, exactly right. He's proving this point, and Phil just can't get it,
right?
And it's funny because it resonates now in a way of just like what you can't get away with, and not that I want to, but it's just in the workplace, I loved that. There's so much pain, and then there's booze, and then we're making out. So it's like what happened?
That was great.
How did that happen? Yeah,
that's one of the greatest twists in TV history, I think.
I think so too. Yeah, just as that moment, we're like, oh, let's just go for it,
Yeah. Hey, job well done, sir.
No, thank you.
So I'm curious. Are there any actors or filmmakers that you haven't worked with that you'd want to in the future?
Gosh. Yeah, there's plenty. I mean, it's funny. It's always one of those questions that I think people get on the spot with. I think there's so many young and new talented directors. But, I'd love to work with Scorsese. I'd love to work with Woody Allen. I'd love to work with some of the icons,
I could definitely see you in a Woody Allen movie.
I would love, you know what? Look, I mean, Woody's personal agenda aside, I grew up watching his films, and he really kind of informed my comedy as well. So, just to work with him would be great. But, like Gary Oldman and Gabriel Byrne, and I got to work with Anthony Hopkins and Hitchcock just for a moment, but it was, he's terrific. Nice. And, I got to watch him blow his lines, and call for lines. And I was like, oh my God, it happens to all of us. That's great.
That's funny.
Yeah. It's very encouraging, actually.
Nice. And speaking of like well-known actors, talented actors, and I think you were painfully underused in Battle of the Sexes.
Oh, thank you.
Such a good movie, and I want to see more of you. You were,
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. I love those guys, Jonathan and Valerie, and they've just been so kind to put me in their movies, and but working with Alan was terrific. And
you were great together.
Amazing, and Sarah,
and you were with Sarah
knocked it out of the park. Yes, exactly. And Sarah knocked it out of the park. Just great. Just glad. And and then, you know, the guys I didn't get to work with were you know, Bill Pullman and Steve and
Emma,
you know, his cronies and stuff. And so, you know, it's a great cast, and Andrea, I'm going to say her name wrong, Andrea Riseborough, is just so stunning to watch work.
Yeah.
She really is not a lazy actor at all, and transforms herself. She's very chameleon-like. So it's a great experience. I wish I had more too.
So I'm curious, what do you look for when you select a role?
That's funny. I like to be a little bit scared. Like I'm not sure if I can do it. And I love it if the words fit my mouth kind of naturally.
Okay.
That doesn't happen often, but sometimes I'm kind of blessed with that. Like Phil and Larry Sanders was one of those instances where I was like, oh, I get this. I understand it. I understand it. And how can I be of service to this material? Because I really want to help tell the story. I don't look at roles necessarily to further what I think is going to be the next agenda or stepping stone that I need for my career. And, you know, case in point, I've done a lot of short films this year for friends, and have had a blast. And I mean, aside from the fact that they ask me, and it's flattering, I want to do the best job I can for them and to tell their story and stuff. And so it's, you know, but I know that somebody may see that, somebody may not, you know, and that's out of my hands. But I just really, I'm finding lately I just really want to understand and portray the humanity to any given character, and especially if they're supposed to be evil or bad. Just, you know, it's what's under all that. You know, what motivated that to become this bad, and can I be the person to bring it and get people to watch and go, oh my God, this guy's a human being. He's tortured and very messed up, but you know, we see the human in there somewhere, you know.
And that's what Phil. That's who Phil was. He was, you know, a jerk, but you know, he was suffering in a way. He was confused.
He had clay feet.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. I don't know if I've ever said this in an interview, but maybe I have. But I kind of based Phil on my mother. Oddly enough, she was really sarcastic. Yeah, she was really sarcastic and could be caustic, and there was some like thing that I latched into that I could just go, oh, I get this guy. I totally understand it, because it just reminded me of my mother who I'd grown up with, and and my mother, you know, and she definitely had her insecurities and her faults and things that made her human, you know. So.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, Wallace, I want to thank you so much for your time today. This has been a great experience, and I'm so happy to have met you.
You as well. Thanks, man.
Yeah. And I just want to let you know that I actually have my own sort of Larry Sanders moment every Sunday. Yeah, I host an internet radio talk show in Huntington, Long Island. And I basically I do what I'm doing right now. I interview actors and filmmakers, and if you're ever in Huntington, Long Island, we'd love to have you on the show.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I'll keep you posted if I ever make it out that way.
Sounds great.
Right.
Wallace, thanks again for your time. I'm Randy Unger, and this has been Under the Radar. Thanks for listening, guys.